The International Newsnet World Report is a national television news show available in more than 30 million homes. We broadcast daily real news the networks won't tell you. We are solely viewer-supported. That means you. You can donate at our website, INNWorldReport.net. We hope you find the following interview informative and helpful.
The History Channel special, 9/11 Conspiracies, Fact or Fiction, first aired on August 20th. It aimed to quell theories and dismiss what it called obvious errors about the attacks on September 11, 2001. Here at INN, we were alarmed by journalistic techniques used by History Channel's Brad Davis to position his experts on the high ground and to discredit or debunk what they call wild conspiracies. In this special INN series, we will talk to some of the scientists, scholars, filmmakers, and authors who were interviewed in the film and get their reactions to History Channel's effort to set the record straight. But first, let's look at a clip from 9/11 Conspiracies, Fact or Fiction.
Jim Miggs is the editor of Popular Mechanics magazine. In 2005, he and a staff of reporters decided to take on the factual and scientific claims made by members of a 9/11 conspiracy movement.
And so here at Popular Mechanics, we kind of looked at it and said, well, these are the things that this magazine was founded to look into. You know, what happens when planes crash? How are buildings built? How do they fall down?
Miggs enlisted the help of more than 70 experts in fields including aviation, engineering, and the military.
And we really decided to look at tangible evidence, physical evidence, and really see what's there. Because if you don't have that, then you really don't have a case, regardless of what kind of grand theory you might have.
The results were first published in a magazine article, then more fully developed in a book titled Debunking 9/11 Myths, Why Conspiracy Theories Can't Stand Up to the Facts.
I think what Popular Mechanics did with the 9/11 conspiracy theory was just about one of the best things ever done in the history of skepticism. That is exactly how it should be done, because that's the level at which these people are dealing with, the little factoids. Here's the claim, here's the answer. Here's the claim, here's the answer. By the end, they got nothing to stand on. Boom, end of story.
That was Skeptic Magazine's Michael Shermer. We have put in a call to his office to see if his opinion has changed since he spoke with the History Channel and are awaiting his response. But first, a clip of Dr. Stephen E. Jones.
You would expect the tower to absorb the shock, but not just fail completely, and certainly not in less than 15 seconds, as we observed.
That clip of Professor Stephen E. Jones explaining the near free-fall speed of the collapse of the Towers 1 and 2 was one of only 2 short appearances by Jones, who has been credited with a plausible, scientifically backed explanation of the collapse. He now joins us by phone. Welcome, Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Lenny. It's good to be here.
One of the first things that I was taken back by was how short your appearance was on the History Channel's presentation. How long did History Channel interview you?
Oh, for about an hour. And then in addition, this interview took place at the University of Texas at Austin, where I was giving a talk. And I recall seeing those fellows in the audience during my talk. So that's another, about an hour and 15 minutes. And so all told, they heard from me for a couple hours, and to give me those 2 short opportunities, and then they didn't even discuss some of the meat of what I presented to them, and of course is in my research papers, which are available online. So I was very disappointed after seeing those 2 short, a couple of short quotes of me. Then I waited through the rest of their special in vain, hoping that they would give me a chance to express the evidence, the hard physical evidence that I found for demolition.
What they're trying to say is all kinds of explosives went off all in the building that were perfectly timed, and that top section fell a lot faster than it would have if it had to force all this other debris down. And that's just not true. It's just factually inaccurate.
What was your response to History Channel's demolition expert Brent Blanchard's rebuttal to your brief statement? And Most importantly, what was left out of the rest of your interview that would have been relevant to this topic?
Basically, Brent Blanchard just says, well, I'm the expert, and that takes care of Jones. You know, well, it's not quite that simple because, of course, I have brought forth this evidence, which I'll talk a little more about. There was a point that Brent made that I just disagree with, and that is that he suggested that all demolitions must proceed from the bottom up, which does appear to be the case at Building 7, but for the towers, it does appear that the demolitions started near where the planes went in.
The biggest problem with this whole thing for me is how do you put explosives in those exact spots where the plane hit, before the plane hit?
That's not difficult to accomplish by placing explosives, cutter charges, every couple of floors and radio controlling the detonation sequence. One can then program the computer after the plane has hit to begin the detonation sequence near where the plane went in. About a year and a half ago, I interviewed Brent Blanchard with Sophia, by the way. It was a three-way conversation. So she was on the line. And I asked him several things. First of all, I asked him, is it possible to have radio-controlled detonations in a controlled demolition? And he said, sure, that's done routinely these days. I also asked him, and that's important, right, because then in that way you can quickly program the computer to have the detonation start near where the plane went in. You just have to load the explosives every few floors and then notice where the plane went in and then program the computer to start the detonations near where the plane went in. That was an important point. He said, yes, radio-controlled demolition is very feasible and is done. The second thing I asked him was, that I thought was particularly important, have you ever seen molten metal in the rubble after a controlled demolition? So I've had that argument. People say, well, there's so much energy released in the collapse of a building that in itself could produce molten metal. And my response is, well, let's do the experiment. And fortunately, the experiment has been done. Whenever you demolish a building, you have all that energy coming crashing down. You've got steel in there. Do you ever get molten pools? I asked Brent Blanchard. He said he's seen hundreds of these demolitions. Not once has there been molten metal in the rubble before 9/11.
Dr. Jones, everything I've read, including the reports from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, do not take into account some of Newton's most basic laws of physics, most importantly, conservation of energy. Did you consider that when you said that free fall speed was virtually impossible?
Yes, conservation of energy and conservation of momentum, which both of those come into play. The fundamental bedrock and the speed at which the towers actually fell, which is very. And when you look at the free fall speed, then of course those laws must be considered. I would point listeners to an excellent paper by math professor Kenneth Cutler, and also by mechanical engineer Gordon Ross, and there's some others, Frank Legge, Dr. Frank Legge, in all of these in the Journal of 9/11studies.com, refer to the free fall speed.